Hello, your tech admin here, and in my last video I showed off an old Dell Dimension 4600, my personal machine, and so I decided for this next video I'd focus on something new. This is a Dell Optiplex 9020 ultra small form factor. These are awesome little machines. I borrowed this one from my workplace. It features an Intel Core i5 with 4 gigs of RAM, and I believe it came with a 500 gig 7200 RPM spinning disk hard drive. We have since upgraded it to a solid state disk. Here's a look at the back. This particular one comes with, we've got network here, 4 USB 3.0 ports, a VGA port, and 2 display ports. I've also seen models that have a display port and an HDMI in addition to the VGA. I'd honestly wish they'd trade the VGA out for a display port, or not a display port, but a DVI port, but unfortunately that doesn't seem to be an option they offer. They do offer a version of this machine with an Intel Core i7, but of course it's a bit more expensive. This particular model runs for about $700, so it's really affordable. And overall, a nice machine. Here in the front you've got, of course, microphone and a combo mic and headphone port, as well as 2 more USB 3 ports. This case actually does open up like a just traditional PC if you loosen the screw here in the back and slide it forward, and then the entire front panel comes off. Inside there's actually a built-in speaker, which is pretty cool. There you can see that solid-state drive that we put in. It's a Samsung Evo. I'm not sure exactly which model because I didn't put it in. If you pinch these 2 tabs here, you actually remove the entire cooling assembly and have a look underneath at the CPU heat spreader or heatsink and the memory slots. It actually supports 16 gigs of RAM, which is pretty nice. The hard drive is equally as easy to get out too. You just squeeze these 2 tabs and push forward on the mount, and out it comes. It's easy enough that I can actually do it with one hand with relative ease. So here's the SSD that we put in. It's a Samsung 850 Evo 250 gig. Again, this was something that my workplace did, so I really had no part in this. It's I'll tell you, it flies with this SSD in there though. So there's a look at the internals with everything laid open. As you see, the secondary display port sits on a daughter board, so that would explain why I've also seen one of these with an HDMI port. It seems that they're pretty much swappable, and you can probably pick in the configuration which port you'd rather have. Down here below the hard drive there's actually 2 PCI Express mobile slots. I believe that's what those are. There's one there and one there. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not really entirely sure about the mobile expansion slots that have been featured on different computers in the past, so those may be something different, but I'm pretty sure they're PCI Express Mobile or something similar. It might just be PCI Mobile. There you can see the 4 gig RAM chip that's in there. We're actually going to end up maxing this out to 16 gigs of RAM before the actual installation we're going to do with this machine at work. That's pretty much all there is to the internals. This packaged really nicely, and everything is really well laid out, I feel, and it's easy to work on. Just pull this guy and this guy out, and you can access pretty much everything there is to do with the machine. Here's a look at the back plate. This particular one shipped with Windows 8, I believe. I have since installed Windows 10 on it. There's the service tag and express service code there if you want to actually look up this machine's configuration online. The manufacturer date is actually December the 7th. 2015, so at this point in time this machine is just a little over a month old, so it's fairly new. That's enough talk about the hardware though. Let's go ahead and hook this sucker up and boot it. Here I have it set up in the vertical configuration. You can just as easily lay this over into the horizontal configuration. It works either way. You can see that. The port use in the back is pretty minimal, to be honest. You can see down at the very bottom there I have the power and then display port, which is going into a small adapter for my monitor, and then I've got 2 USB ports for mouse and keyboard, You can actually take this down to one port use if you just used a wireless keyboard and mouse. And up here I have something that's optional. It's a USB network adapter, which allows me to forego the network cable entirely. Overall, it's a pretty sleek setup, and I could easily see myself using this with dual monitors with these two display ports here. Let's go ahead and see a cold boot of Windows 10 on this machine and see just how fast it is. And there we go, we're at the lock screen. I'll go ahead and log in. And we're ready to go at the desktop. Windows 10 has the drivers for that little USB Wi-Fi adapter built in, so there's no need to install anything. Just plug it in and it works. It's pretty nice. So here's Windows 10 running, and as you can see I have installed Minecraft. We'll get to that later. But I'm just going to launch a few applications, and as you can see with that SSD, it absolutely flies. So, great performance. Here's a look at Task Manager sitting idle. As you can see, we're barely using any of the processor at all. And we're using about 1 gig. And disk activity is pretty quiet, and we've got some Wi-Fi activity, but overall, it's barely bothered by running Windows 10. And there's the processor model there if you're interested. It's a i5 4590T running at a maximum of 2 gigahertz, but of course it has speed steps, so right now it's actually only running at 0.7 gigahertz. Here's a look in Device Manager, and as you can see, I've got a couple drivers missing. This is actually a fresh install of Windows 10. I haven't even ran Windows Update yet, so those are just the drivers that Windows didn't already have readily available. As you can see, it does use the Intel HD 4600 graphics, which are more than capable of running simple games like Minecraft. So you can see here that I'm actually running Minecraft at the moment, and I'm getting a steady 60 frames a second with VSync enabled. And as you can see, I look around, it drops down to about 59, 58 every now and again, but it's pretty stable at 60 frames a second. Here's a look at the video settings I'm actually running at the moment. Pretty much everything's maxed out except for the render distance is sitting at the default, which is 8. Here's a look with VSync disabled. As you can see, you get around 100 frames a second standing still, and walking around it'll drop to about 70 or 80 at some points. So it runs really well, all things considered. And this is of course with Optifine installed. I haven't ran it without Optifine, but I'm sure it'd still do pretty good considering the frame rates I'm getting with Optifine installed. As you can hear, that built-in speaker does alright for what it is, but it's definitely a bit tinny, and if you want to hear anything really well, you do have to turn it up pretty much to maximum. Here's some Minecraft gameplay I captured using Windows 10's built-in game capture utility. During this capture, the lowest frame rate I saw was 53 frames a second, while the highest was 75 frames per second, so I could easily see someone using this computer to make Minecraft videos with little to no issues at all. Really, it's quite nice, and I had a lot of fun just running around and killing enemies. Of course, this was only recorded at 1280 by 961 resolution, so at a higher resolutions you may have less performance. Overall, I'd say this is actually a really great little machine, and at $700 for the Core i5 model, you really can't go wrong. My only honest complaint about it is the fact that the power adapter is a non-standard plug. I would have loved to see Dell use the more standard plug that they use on most of their laptops, which looks like this. As you can see, it's just a bit too big to fit in there. These actually do come with a little bracket, so you could easily mount them under a desk, something like this, so it'd be super out of the way, which is really awesome. And that's honestly what this small form factor is all about. The fact that you can pretty much put it anywhere and still have plenty of power to do basic computing and some light gaming, no problems at all. This video is actually supposed to come out today, January the 20th, but while I was in the middle of doing the video editing during some downtime at work, my boss walked in and brought this, which is the 16 gigabyte memory kit for this 9020. So I figured as a little added bonus I'd go ahead and install them. So these are two 8 gigabyte DDR3 1866 DIMMs here, and they were actually bought from a place called For All Memory. I've never heard of this particular company before, but my boss said we bought them from there because they had the cheapest price. So that's just kind of the way it goes at the workplace, I guess. But anyway, without much further to say, let's go ahead and get these in the 9020. So as you saw earlier, getting this case apart is really easy. You just loosen the screw in the back, and then the whole top portion of the case slides forward and pulls out like that. And to access the memory, we just have to remove this fan shroud and fan, just like that. And here's the memory. So the first thing I'll do is go ahead and remove this existing 4 gig chip, just like that. And that comes right out. And then I will slot the 2 new chips right in. So there's the first one. And there's the second one. Now all we gotta do is slot this little fan shroud back on top, just like that. And then the case goes right back on. And that's all there is to it. And here we can see the 16 gigs is installed and recognized by Windows. And this is what it looks like in Task Manager. Only using 9% of the memory now. So, not bad at all. And yes, I did go back and install those drivers. So all the drivers are there now. So that's all I have to say about the Dell Optiplex 9020 ultra small form factor. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, drop a like if you like the video, and until next time guys, take it easy.